Just gotta get down the fork. Yeah, that'll be okay, I think, barely.
You think I can just slide it?
I think so.
Yeah. A little farther, maybe? Let's go a little farther. Yeah, we all can get it in now.
I took a trip up to Martin's this morning to pick up a pallet of potting soil, and you know what that means. It's about time to get planting going in the greenhouse. It's early March, and I had a great winter of unscheduled time working on building projects and repairs, but that time is about coming to a close. This is the first thing for the coming growing season that has to happen at a particular moment, reducing the time available for those sorts of discretionary projects. As the season gets underway, more and more of things like that will have to happen until we're working flat out just to keep up with the essentials. So I've got about another month or so to finish up my winter projects before the time available for those sorts of things drops off precipitously. But I'm making pretty good progress, and when we get back to the farm I'll show you what I've been up to, including how we're going to get this pallet out of the van. So this is the pallet forks that I've gotten. I've had these for years and years since I started farming entirely. They're great for moving things around the farm, picking up pallets, setting them down again, and carrying pallet bins through the field. But what they can't do is unload from any real vehicle. They just don't go very high. This is about as high as they would ever get, which is just about to the bumper of most vehicles that are going to ever deliver anything. So there are a number of ways I've gotten around that hassle of not being able to unload stuff with forks, with pallet forks. But I've always wanted a better solution. I finally got it figured out and welded it up over the last few days. This is the first time I'm trying it, so I've got my measuring tape, which says it'll work, but I've never actually done it in person. So we'll see here. This is just what I'd hoped for. Whoops, and there's the door. The reason I need to have the stack of pallets here is because when it's on the high lift tin, that's as far down as it goes. So I've got to do this 2-stage lower. I thought that was pretty cool. I love it when the things you build on paper work the same way as you imagine in the real world. I'm going to put these pallets away now and then go to the shop and work on assembling a whole bunch of pieces of equipment that I built over the last week or so. Oh, that was delightful. Not everything you build works in the first try. I spent some time getting the yellow tractor all squared away for the start of the season. This is, to me, a new tractor because it's younger than I am. You noticed a couple things. First is the front has been too light, so I've had a wheel weight I've left over from the littlest tractor that I've got. It's just been sitting in the fence row for a little bit. Made some brackets, bolted that on. I think that'll be enough. And here in the back, I've got the potato digger toolbar. This is what I got with another piece of equipment that I bought. He says you can buy the transplanter, but you have to take this plastic laying machine as well, which they made in, I don't know, 1983 perhaps? That wasn't very useful for me, but I took it, and it also sat in the fence row for some years, and then I needed to dig potatoes, so I used the toolbar from that plastic layer that I ended up with, pulled it out of the weeds, cleaned it up a bit, and I've been using that. And all this sounds a little bit improvisational and fly-by-night. It might be. I think this is completely usual as far as farming goes. Farmers are inclined, I think, to make do with what's around and improvise based on what they have on hand. And that's something that interests me as well. I mean, look, these sway bars here, that's just, I don't know, this is some top link that I had around and some shackles from the last time I replaced the flail mower blades and some pieces of metal and some bolts. I mean, that works perfectly fine. But yeah, I don't know, it's not exactly off the shelf. But I think it would feel familiar to a lot of farmers how I'm going about this. Even if I think to people used to buying things ready to go from the store, it's a little bit unusual. I think most things I have here on the farm I either bought used or built them myself out of parts. And I think that DIY kind of creativity is also part of a lot of farm life. Now, to be clear, I didn't the least bit grow up on a farm or anywhere near farms. But it is certainly something, it is certainly an approach to the enterprise that I do appreciate. The biggest new thing here, though, is these hooks on the lift arms, which I have never even tried in real life. I've only seen them on the internet, but I think this will be the key to switching implements really easily. So here's the before. The blue arms are trying to get to those pins, and I'm a little bit crooked, so I'm going to try it back. There we go. I get these arms around the end, around the pins here. This one's a little closer, start with that. But it's not quite close enough. And this one. It's too low. It's down underneath the equipment. There we go. Come on. And then get the pin. The other side. It's a little far away. I push it back to the off. Now the tractor can go forward a little bit while I kick the pin in. There we go. Well, this was pretty typical. That wasn't too bad. A little bit of maneuvering, but really fairly smooth. Sometimes it's a lot more annoying, sometimes it's a little bit easier. I would say that's fairly typical. But you're still going to take the equipment off too sometimes, so I'll see how this goes, taking them off. Put the pins off, see if that's going to move, not going to move. Try the other one. I can try backing up a little bit. There we go. There we go. There we go. I just had to back up a little more. To try to make the distance between the tractor and the implement want to be a little shorter, and that squeezed these arms off the end a little more easily. That was a little bit of a pain, but I would say fairly typical. I think it could be a lot easier. Here's with the new hook dealios. Let's see what this is like. that's amazing. Wow. Okay, let's take them off. They lock open. I had to adjust the locks a little bit so they actually worked right, but no problem. Well, that is just pretty cool. I mean, that was what, 10 seconds? It probably takes 5 minutes, I don't know. 5 minutes for an average hookup and another several minutes to unhook. And that's when it's that's when it's normal. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. Never mind the fact that one thing we are so commonly doing is that it's wet, and then it's gonna rain and you wanna do the groundwork at the last moment when it's as dry as possible but before it rains. And so then there's a whole sequence of things to do all at a stretch. Always with some time pressure of rain or darkness. So this will make my life so much more pleasant. Now I'm going down to the equipment greenhouse to get the little tractor. More on this tractor in a future video, I'm sure, but this is a design from International, well, Farmall at the time, from post-war 1948 or so was the first time they came out with it. Built up through 1977 maybe. This is a pretty late model of an old tractor, but it is just the most perfect vegetable tractor for what I've got going on here. Okay, I haven't run this in a while and it's pretty cold today, so let's see if this thing can get going. The tractor doesn't start. Always make sure that it has a battery. Now this tractor is really cool because it's got this belly hitch here between the two wheels underneath the engine. This is something that modern tractors are only now coming back to. And I've just built a number of more things for that toolbar. Here's going to be 1, 2, 3 more pieces of equipment. All this is probably about 3 days of solid production sort of work, which was unique for me. Usually all this mechanical stuff is sort of one-offs, specialty designs. This is the first time it's felt like production farm work, even here in the metal shop in the winter. Okay, here we go. Potato hilling discs. Here's a set for 1 row, 2 discs with the potatoes going in the middle. They'll hill up dirt on either side, and these just adjust side to side to set the spacing, and they lock in place with the set screws here that just clamp it down onto the toolbar. So 1 piece down. Okay, here's the toolbar for the next one. Ratchet wrenches, one of the best $30 I ever spent. This is a cultivator for the edges of plastic mulch or the edges of beds. There's this fancy thing. Here are little spikes, and then there's this new thing that everybody likes these days. Finger weeders are these rubber fingers that will stir up the soil and not damage stuff too much, and so that gets the edge. Okay, I'm finished up for the evening here with this track cultivator. You can't quite see it yet, but I'm going to put these giant shanks onto this toolbar here to have 2 running behind each tire. The neat thing about this is I've got this adapter in the middle for this giant potato plow. There are occasions where it's nice to have in the middle of this sort of thing. So now the opportunity is there if it should present itself. None of this machinery is anything that I've really invented myself, with principles anyway. What I've done is to get the actual design of the thing into a system that works with my tractors and my interests on my farm. And although I can buy all the parts in the world and I can copy the principles of any number of other equipment makers doing these sorts of things, there's nothing I can buy that will work with these old tractors in this way. The degree to which I build and alter my own equipment is certainly on the extreme end of things, but I think in general the principles of building and refining and repairing are just what everybody else does here in the farm world. So it won't be too long before I get a chance to try all this stuff out and get it adjusted in the field. Potatoes are going to go in all over there in maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. And so I'll be watching the weather forecast to see when the driest window might be. It'll be short, whenever it'll be. But the moment that ground is dry enough to work up, I will start getting it ready for potatoes. So that'll be the first thing here on the farm that shows that we're getting underway for the season.